I never believed in legends, stories about ghosts, mysterious places, and things that couldn't be explained always seemed like cheap tricks to attract attention or add atmosphere. But everything changed the day I first set foot in the City of Shadows. I didn't even know it existed. It was one of those places that simply wasn't mentioned on official maps, and no one who had ever been there was willing to say what it was really like. The city was hidden deep within the heart of a forest, and the only way to reach it was a path covered with dry leaves and vines that seemed to disappear into the woods as though they had been there since the beginning of time. It started simply enough. I went hiking with friends, looking for an escape from the routine of daily life. As soon as we entered the forest, we found ourselves on a path we couldn't track on the GPS. All we knew was that I noticed a figure moving in the distance. It was nothing more than a shadow at first, blending into the darkness. But as it came closer, I realized it wasn't a person at all. It was something else. A shape, tall and thin, that moved in a way that wasn't human. It wasn't walking, it was gliding, as if the ground beneath it didn't matter. I blinked and the figure disappeared. "Did you see that?" one of my friends whispered. His voice was trembling, and I could hear the uncertainty in it. "I don't know what I saw," I replied, my own voice caught in my throat. "But we need to leave. Now." But as we turned to go back the way we had come, we realized something horrifying. The path was gone. The forest we had entered was now an impenetrable wall of trees. There was no way out, and that's when the shadows began to gather around us. We stood there frozen, as the thickening fog seemed to press in from all sides, enveloping us. The forest was no longer familiar, and the city around us had become an impossible maze, twisting in ways that defied logic. The quiet was unbearable, and the air felt heavier with every breath. We were trapped. Panic started to take hold. I could feel my heartbeat racing in my chest, the adrenaline flooding my system, but my legs felt like they were made of lead, unwilling to carry me. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but where? Every direction looked the same, dark, silent, and endless. "What the hell is happening?" my friend Mark whispered, his voice trembling. This isn't real. It can't be." "I don't know," I answered, trying to force my voice to steady. "But we need to stick together. We need to find a way out." But as I spoke, the air around us shifted, and a low hum filled the silence. It was a sound like nothing I had ever heard before, vibrating through the ground, the trees, the very air. It was as if the city itself was alive, pulsing with an energy we couldn't understand. A distant figure appeared again, this time closer, just beyond the fog. It wasn't the same shadow we had seen earlier. No, it was something far worse. This figure seemed to glide effortlessly through the mist, its movements unnatural and deliberate. There was no face, just a shifting silhouette that flickered in and out of focus like a glitch in the fabric of reality. I could feel my pulse quickening, my thoughts scrambling. "We have to move." But when I turned to my friends, I realized they were no longer beside me. The fog had swallowed them whole, and the city had shifted. In their place was the silent, empty street stretching out before me like an endless road. My friends were gone, just like that. I called out for them, but my voice seemed to be swallowed by the thick fog. No answer. The only sound that remained was that unsettling hum, now closer, growing louder with every passing second. I ran. My legs burned as I sprinted through the mist, but no matter how far I went, the streets kept stretching, changing direction, as though they were alive. It was the mirror. A large, cracked mirror lay before me, half buried in the dirt. And as I stared at it, the reflection wasn't mine. There, in the shattered glass, stood a version of myself, but not the one I recognized. It was wrong. The face in the mirror was distorted, the eyes black and hollow, the skin pale and stretched. It smiled slowly, painfully, and the smile stretched farther than any human smile should. It reached toward the glass, its hand moving as if to touch me. I backed away, my heart hammering in my chest. I knew what it was. It was a reflection, but it wasn't mine. It was something else, something darker, something that had been born out of this cursed city. And then, the figure from the fog reached me. It towered over me, its form shifting, flickering like a bad television signal. The hum was days passed since I had found myself back at the edge of the forest. It should have felt like I was home again, like the nightmare had ended, but it didn't. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still with me, something that had followed me back, lingering just out of sight. The nights were the worst. I would lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the hum of the city still faintly ringing in my ears, and the shadow of that figure, that other version of myself, lingering in my mind. I kept seeing its face in the reflection of every surface, mirrors, windows, even puddles. Every time I closed my eyes, it was there, smiling its twisted smile, reaching toward me. I tried to rationalize it. Stress, exhaustion. Maybe it was all just a delusion, a trick my mind had played on me after too many sleepless nights and too much fear. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. The city was real. And I had brought something back with me. I couldn't ignore it anymore. One evening, unable to sleep, I grabbed my coat and left my apartment. The city was quiet, the streets bathed in the faint glow of streetlights, but there was something wrong. The air was thick, heavier than usual, as though the world itself was holding its breath. I had no idea where I was going. My feet seemed to carry me, without my consent, back toward the forest. The same forest where I had first entered the City of Shadows. The walk felt longer than usual, the silence pressing against me. The trees loomed taller, their shadows stretching out like claws, but I couldn't turn back. Something was pulling me forward, and there it was. The entrance to the forest, the path, the one I thought I had left behind. I hesitated for a moment, but then, as if possessed, I stepped onto the familiar path. It was the same as before, covered with dry leaves, silent and touched, but this time, I wasn't sure if it was the forest I remembered. The air was colder. The trees seemed to whisper in a language I didn't understand. I walked for what felt like hours, the fog rolling in around me, and then I saw it. A shadow flickering between the trees, moving in ways that didn't make sense, as though it were not quite part of the world. My heart skipped a beat. It was the figure. But it was different this time. It wasn't just a shadow anymore. It was real. It stood at the edge of the path, watching me. Its form flickered in and out of focus, like it was half in one world and half in another. But this time, it wasn't just following me. It was waiting. I didn't move. I couldn't. My feet felt rooted to the ground, and I could hear my own heartbeat in my ears, deafening. I wanted to run, to turn around and leave, but something about this moment felt inevitable. And then, the figure spoke. You came back. The voice was a whisper, but it felt like it came from everywhere, reverberating through the very air around me. It was my voice, but it wasn't. It was the version of me that had lived in the shadows, in the mirror. The one I had left behind. I never left, I muttered, my voice cracking, as if I was speaking words I didn't fully understand. The figure stepped forward, its movements naturally fluid, as though it were both there and not there at the same time. It didn't walk, it drifted, gliding closer, its presence swallowing the air. It was me, and yet it wasn't. It was the shadow of everything I had ignored, everything I had refused to confront. You shouldn't have returned, it said, its smile stretching wider than should have been possible. You thought you could escape, but this place doesn't let go. I backed up, stumbling over the roots of a tree, but the figure followed me, its form becoming clearer, more solid with every passing moment. It's too late for that, it continued, its voice a low growl now. You belong here. This world and the one you came from, they're the same. You've always been in between. I could feel my breath hitching, my pulse racing. I didn't know if I could fight whatever this was, but I had to try. I had to break free. The shadow was me, and I wasn't. We were connected in a way I couldn't fully understand. But the more I stared into its dark eyes, the more I felt something break inside me, something I had hidden for too long, something I didn't even realize existed. I turned and ran. The figure laughed, its voice a harsh, distorted sound that echoed through the trees. But I didn't stop. My feet carried me faster, and I could hear its footsteps behind me, not chasing me, but following me as if it had always been a part of me. The fog thickened, and the path twisted into impossible shapes, but somehow I knew the way. I ran past trees, past branches, until I saw it, the reflection. The mirror, it stood in the middle of the path, just like it had before. I didn't know how it had gotten there, but there it was, calling me. I approached it cautiously, my reflection distorted in the glass. But it wasn't the same reflection as before. This time, it was clear. My own face stared back at me, hollow and empty, just like the shadow that had been following me. "You can't escape yourself," the reflection whispered. "You never could." I reached for the mirror, my fingers trembling. But the moment my hand made contact with the glass, it shattered. The world around me cracked like fragile porcelain, and for a moment, everything stopped. And then, just like that, I woke up. I was back in my apartment. The morning light was creeping through the window, and the city was quiet. The forest was far behind me, but the echoes of the city of shadows still lingered in my mind.
Now I speak, get outside of my house. I don't know if I'll ever escape it. Maybe the city doesn't want to let me go. Or maybe it's just me, trapped between two worlds, unable to tell where one ends and the other begins. But every time I close my eyes, I hear the hum, and I know it's waiting. The smile that stretched across the face now wearing mine wasn't a mere expression, it was a declaration. I felt it in my teeth, my muscles, my breath. Something was inside me. Or maybe I was now inside it. The city on this side of the mirror was alive, but not in any way I'd known life to be. The buildings pulsed faintly, like organs stitched together with glass and rusted metal. The sky overhead never shifted, a constant dim charcoal hue, without sun or stars. A dull amber light radiated from nowhere, casting long, flickering shadows that bent the wrong way.
"You speak like a child. Get out. This is not your house." I wandered through unfamiliar streets that mirrored my world's layout but were completely wrong in detail. Stores had no signs, traffic lights blinked erratically though no cars ever passed. The people or what passed for them moved in slow, jerking patterns, their faces smudged and blurred, as though memory itself had forgotten how to finish them. I tried to speak to one, a tall woman in a gray dress with too many elbows. Her head turned toward me, but her face didn't move. No eyes, no mouth, just pale, skin like canvas. She reached for me with trembling fingers, and I staggered back. "Wrong name," she whispered without lips. I ran, down alleys that twisted into stairwells, through doorways that opened to identical hallways. Always the hum in my ears, the dreadful vibration like a power line buzzing under my skull. Eventually, I found the tower. It wasn't a mirror of Meridian Tower exactly, but something older, something remembered rather than built. It leaned slightly to the right, impossibly tall and thin, wrapped in scaffolding made of bone and rebar. The windows were eyes blinking, watching. Something inside me knew this was where I had to go. The doors opened without touch. Inside, an elevator awaited. No buttons, just a single lever. I stepped in. The doors closed. The hum became a roar. As the elevator ascended, numbers scrawled themselves across the walls in what looked like blood but smelled like rain. -37, -22, -5, 0, 5, 22, 37, 88, higher than should be possible. And still it climbed, then silence, the doors parted. The top floor was not an office. It was a cathedral of glass and code. The floor beneath my feet shimmered with lines of data moving like liquid mercury. Symbols floated in the air, glowing faintly in red and white, shifting as though aware of being observed. At the center stood a mirror. But this time, it was a true mirror. I saw myself hollow, terrified, gaunt. Behind my reflection stood the others. Versions of me, dozens, hundreds, all slightly different. Some wore suits, some were burned. One was eyeless, bleeding from sockets, grinning with too many teeth. They stared at me in perfect silence. The one closest stepped forward. "You left the door open," he said. I tried to speak, but my throat closed, no sound. You were never the first, he continued. But you might be the last. He raised a hand. The mirror pulsed. I staggered back, but the elevator was gone. All exits gone, only the mirror, and then I understood. The city of shadows wasn't a place, it was a system, a recursive loop of selves, trapped between choices they never made, walking paths they never chose, split across timelines like cracks in a plate. Each version of me had crossed a threshold. Each paid the price. Some had bargained, others had run. None had escaped. The mirror rippled again, and I saw him. My true self. The one that had never crossed into this world. The one that had hesitated at the edge of the forest. Who turned back, who lived. He looked older, happier. He had a family. He had peace, and I screamed. The sound shook the cathedral, the symbols bursting like glass. The mirror fractured, and the world blinked. I was back, in my room, sweat-soaked sheets. Morning light, silence. I stumbled to the mirror. My reflection stared back, synchronized, real. I touched the glass, solid. I wept, but then I noticed it. A flicker, the faintest lag in the blink. Behind my eyes, the hum. The hum returned in pulses, like sonar from some submerged leviathan. Faint, rhythmic, impossible to unhear once noticed. At first, it only came at night, then during phone calls, then in silence. It lived between sounds never interrupting, always underneath. I stopped sleeping. I tried, but each time I drifted off, I found myself walking the mirrored streets again, pulled like a marionette through a half-memory of places I'd never been. And always, they were there, watching, echoes of me. Some whispered, others wept, one smiled without pause. During waking hours, I'd catch myself doing things I hadn't meant to do, my hand moving toward a knife in the drawer, drawing symbols in the fog on the bathroom mirror. Once, I found a message written on my ceiling in charcoal. You are the reflection now. I didn't remember writing it. I turned all mirrors to the wall, covered windows. Disconnected cameras, nothing helped. My laptop screen flickered static. My phone refused to take photos of my face. Security footage from the office showed me standing still for hours in the break room, unmoving, unblinking. I didn't recall being there, or went to a therapist. I told her everything but nothing. She listened, nodded, recommended grounding exercises. At the end of the session, I caught a glimpse of her reflection in her office mirror. She was gone. Instead, I was sitting in the chair across from me. Same posture, same clothes, watching me, amused.
Get out all of my story, and you guys sorry for this man's before. I left and never returned. That night, I tried to destroy the mirror. The large one in my bedroom. I lifted it, hurled it face down. The frame cracked, but the glass didn't break. It laughed. Not audibly. But I felt it. A vibration in the air, in my bones. I covered it with a sheet. But the sheet moves on its own now. I began counting days not by calendar, but by symptoms, how many new anomalies had appeared. On day 12, my reflection blinked after me, then didn't blink at all. On day 17, it mouthed my name, syllable by syllable, before whispering another name I didn't recognize. On day 23, I saw something else in the mirror with me. Not a version of myself, but a tall, crooked figure standing behind me in the room. I spun. Nothing. When I turned back, the reflection was closer. The humming became speech. Not in words, exactly. But meaning. I understood it. The message was always the same. Let us through. And I was starting to consider it. Not out of madness, but exhaustion. Reality had thinned. My body was failing. I hadn't eaten in days. Water tasted metallic. Skin peeled from my fingers. My voice cracked when I tried to call anyone. I wondered if I had ever truly returned. Or if this world, too, was a layer, another reflection. A man from the mirror stood outside my door last night. I don't know how I knew, but I knew it wasn't a hallucination. I could hear the breathing. It was like mine, but reversed. Drawn inward on the exhale. He knocked once. Waited. Knocked again. And then whispered through the wood. "You've seen enough. Open the door." I didn't. But tonight, I might. Tonight, the knock didn't come from the door. It came from inside the mirror. I stood frozen, the sheet fluttering slightly from the draft, except there was no draft. A single hand pressed through the fabric from beneath, its 5 fingers splayed like a starfish, waiting to be acknowledged. I tore the sheet away. The mirror glowed faintly now, edges pulsing with that sick amber light from the mirror city skyline. Behind my reflection stood dozens more versions of me, no longer still images, but fully formed, breathing, waiting. Some were broken. Others stood proud, refined, flawless. All watched. My reflection no longer copied me. It stepped forward, placing its palm against the glass. I hesitated. "You're not real," I whispered. "No," it said without moving its mouth. "You're not." I reached toward the glass. I don't know why. Perhaps to reject it? Perhaps to accept it? Our fingertips met. The surface rippled. It was cold. Like metal submerged in ice. And then the glass gave. I was pulled forward, not physically, but wholly. Dragged through the membrane like a scream through water. The world blinked around me. When I opened my eyes, I was inside the mirror. Not figuratively. Literally. I stood inside the glass, watching my bedroom from the other side. My reflection, the thing that had worn my face, turned, adjusted its sleeves, and stepped away from the mirror. It was in my world now. I was its shadow. I screamed. No sound came. I slammed my fists against the other side. It didn't look back. From this side, I could see everything I never noticed before. Each mirror in the world is a door. Each reflection a sentinel, a prisoner, or a replacement. Some watch. Some wait. Some have already crossed over. And some, like me, are now trapped behind the glass, screaming for a world that will never see them again. They say I've been more focused lately. More confident. The circles under my eyes are gone. My co-workers nod when I walk past, a little more cautious, as though they sense something new behind my smile. In the bathroom, I catch a glimpse of my reflection. It stares back perfectly, obediently. But sometimes, just sometimes, I catch the faintest shimmer, a flicker of another figure behind the glass. He never blinks. He never smiles. And I think he still remembers.